Welcome to the Dark Hour, where we all get to suffer on life all together. Welcome to misery. Welcome to darkness. Have you ever questioned the meaning of death? Yes, of course you have. You're not stupid. Well, I have a video game for you guys today that will question that even more. How to survive death and how to grow as a person from it. Let's talk all about that. Let's talk about Persona 3 Reload. Hello guys, welcome to a new review on this channel. Welcome back, I am your lovely host, MrMaximum, and today we're going to talk about Persona 3 Reload. Is it actually worth it? Well, I will tell you, yes it is. Stick around, because I'm going to show you why you should take a look at Persona 3 Reload. I was actually very excited to play Persona 3 because I actually never got to play the original one. I am a massive Persona 5 fan myself, so this was my chance to get for the first time basically the Persona 3 experience. This game is edgy as f***. You literally shoot yourself to get your powers. I mean, it cannot be edgier than that, but man, do I f***ing love it. But of course, is the game actually worth it? Yes, of course, that's a stupid question. It's a Persona game. Of course it's worth it. But let's talk into detail why it is worth it. Stick around, enjoy the journey, maybe take some popcorn along the way, maybe something to drink, because I'm going to show you why Persona 3 Reload is awesome. The Persona series has always been about style. Look at this shit, look at this menu, it looks amazing. It's just like Persona 5 and it's on the same quality, it looks great. No other video game franchise can really match this type of stylistic UI. Atlus does it again. I don't know what you guys there at Atlus are paying the art team for this amazing menu design, but man, give them a raise because they are important. If you guys have ever played a Persona game before, you know that Atlus really likes to use an anime art style for their games, and it gives the games a bit more of a longevity art style wise. You don't always have to go with the most hyper realistic graphics to make a video game, and I like this style a lot. It's just like you're playing an actual manga, and that is also how the story is basically structured as well as the gameplay, so it all fits very well together. Now the lighting and the character models for this game aren't anything special. If you've played Persona 5 already, you can kind of just expect the same kind of thing here. It looks fine in my opinion. It's a lot more stylized. You will see that with the NPCs when you walk through a crowd. It's stylized, but it's fine. Looks good to me. One thing I absolutely love graphics wise though are the animations in the game, especially when it comes to battle finishers. They have this all out attack that you have in Persona 5 as well, and you have this amazing stylized cool outro sequence, and it always looks cool, and I can promise you these will become iconic in the future. Just like Persona 5, they look absolutely amazing. So the performance of this game is absolutely smooth. I haven't encountered a single bug or a single frame rate drop whatsoever in my, let's say, 80-hour playthrough, which is a lot. Keep in mind though, I have only played on PlayStation 5, not any other platform. I can't talk about the Xbox version or PC version whatsoever. But one important thing that we have to talk about this game is the soundtrack. It is magnifique. Especially the new songs, they are the best ones in the soundtrack. It's Going Down Now, or the new opening song, Full Moon. Those two in particular slap a ton. I love them. The English voice acting cast though also deserves a big shout out here. Especially Junpei, Sanada and Aegis are some of my favorite performances here in the game. When it comes to the presentation in general, I have nothing really bad to say about this game at all. Great menu design, good graphics, stylized graphics, and as well as a banger soundtrack. Good stuff, Atlas. Now let's talk about the gameplay. Persona 3 Reload is actually pretty faithful to the original when it comes to the gameplay, but it delivers some very well needed quality of life enhancements, and they are pretty good compared to the original. And I am going to say something maybe very controversial here, but I actually wish that they went a bit further with the gameplay changes, especially when it comes to Tartarus, which we will talk about later down the line in this video. Keep it in mind because it's going to be very important. But let's talk about the positives first. As usual, it's a turn-based combat system and it's just as fun here as previous Persona games like Persona 5 or 4. But what I really like about Persona 3 Reload in general at least is how they put a lot more emphasis on critical hits and also status ailments. Because in Royal you sometimes do have maybe a lot of weakness focus, shall I say, where you have to still target the weakness of an enemy before you can stagger them. That is still here in Persona 3 Reload, but there are a lot of bosses when you fight against them that just have no weaknesses at all and the game is like, ha, figure it out yourself.
I gotta get out of here! Where's the time machine? Where is anything? Where?
I do really miss though the shift up mechanic, shall I say. What I mean with that is basically if you would do a, shall I say, a weakness, hit a weakness, you get a one more. That's still in this game, but in Persona 5 Royal, especially when you do a one more, you can shift the turn to another character and then that character would actually get a stat boost. And they don't do this here in Persona 3 Reload. There are some abilities that let you have some sort of a upgrade in the stats, but I wish that was just a main focus. I am kind of missing that here, I'm not going to lie, but it's not a deal breaker. Every character here is fun to use and they all feel very well balanced. The difficulty in general as well feels more akin to Persona 5. Some hardcore fans might not like that, but I'm just going to be very selfish here. I think it's a change for the better. It makes the game more accessible towards other players. And if you really want to have a harder experience, you can just turn up the difficulty. And I do believe that the balancing here is for the better. You also now have the new monad doors that let you challenge boss type enemies with some very neat rewards at the end of them. The gameplay pacing overall is also pretty nice. They constantly introduce a new character that's important to the story, but it also gives you new tools to play with in Tartarus with new characters, or you get new upgrades for your 3G attacks. I don't know if I say this correct. 3G special attacks basically. And these special attacks are basically reserved for your party members and they are very powerful all-out attacks, shall I say. And they all charge up in a different way compared with your character. So as an example, Mitsuru's 3G, shall I say, meter powers up the more ailment moves you use towards an enemy. And so every character has a different way of powering up this 3G meter in order to receive this special attack. It's very nice, and you have to manage every character well in combat. I'm also very happy to report that this game isn't very grindy at all. You can expect something a la Persona 5. There is a little bit of a grind, but it's nowhere compared to other JRPGs. It's much more modern and scaled. Of course though, a Persona game wouldn't be the same without social links. Of course, every Persona game has social link stories that you might not enjoy or you might really love. It depends, because they are all mini written stories and some story might appeal more to you than another one, and I definitely had that with Persona 3 Reload as well. My own personal favorite social links were the Sun, Moon, Hierophant, Devil and Hanged social links. Now, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Strength one. I find that one kind of just meh. Also, Bebe, this like French guy that's in the game, was not my favorite one in the game as well. This guy that is dating his teacher. I like MILFs just as much as the next guy. It's just really how it was written that was kind of... Of course, there are the dorm members that you also have a social link with, especially the female ones like Mitsuru, best waifu in the game.
I've gotten used to walking around without my bathrobe lately. Not a very good habit to fall into. 256 snazzy looks to knock the socks off of your BFFs. The cutest essentials. Well, I would be open to trying this pink one.
Damn, girl. You grew up.
Or Fuka, or Yukatara or something, I forgot her name. She's also romanceable. Don't worry for all the female Persona fans out there. The male party members from C's also have their own linked episodes. It's not the same as a social link. You cannot romance them in any way. You do have a mini story for them though, and they are pretty good as well. So don't worry about that. And they also get power-ups in Tartarus for doing basically these episodes for the male party members, so those were not forgotten. Now let's talk about some of the negatives of Persona 3 Reload's gameplay. Let's talk about the big elephant in the room here. There is no female MC in this version of Persona 3. And a lot of people will be disappointed by that, which I fully understand, by the way, but selfishly I don't really mind this at all. But you should be aware of this fact because it is important. Look, I would rather play Persona 3 Reload with all its gameplay enhancements and quality of life features compared to going back to Persona 3 Portable. Persona 3 Portable is kind of a visual novel, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I'd rather play a 3D game with actual exploration. I find that a bit more important personally. Your mileage will vary, of course. What I find a bigger problem with Persona 3 Reload though is Tartarus. Especially if Persona 5 is your very first Persona experience. It is a pretty big downgrade going from Persona 5 to 3 because you are used to all the palaces dungeons in Persona 5, and every palace in that game is very unique. It has story significance as well, but also has some small puzzles to go through the dungeon, and Tartarus is very, let's call it, simple, and it can get very repetitive at some point. They tried to make Tartarus a bit more unique, but it is not really enough in my opinion. And I noticed this at one point playing the game when I was around the third section of Tartarus. How Tartarus basically works: you go to Tartarus, you grind for 2-3 hours up until you are at a border for, and that's where there is basically a boss fight, and then the way is basically blocked off until you progress through the story. Now, the problem I have at the third section, shall I say, of Tartarus, when I finished that, the whole environment was the same from the previous floor. And I was like, why? What is this? And apparently I had to do 2 border floors in order for Tartarus to truly visually change as well at that point. And I was like, nah, that's not a good one, Atlas. I really expected at least every section to be visually different in some way, and they could have went a bit harder on this to make Tartarus a bit more visually appealing, but also just have some sort of puzzles there or gameplay changes, story stuff, maybe new characters that you get introduced into Tartarus. Just like Persona 5 Royal had with Mementos, you had this like small dude with the stars thing, I don't know what his name is. Something to be there, but you only have the monad doors, and you do have like some gameplay mechanics tied to Tartarus, to faster level, you have chests, you have special enemies, and that's all great, but I do miss a bit more, especially when you play for 10 hours on one part of Tartarus, switching between real life and Tartarus, and you have to do basically 2 border floors. It will get pretty repetitive, so be aware of that. Also, why the hell is the academics stat so high to achieve its max stat for? Like, I was grinding at some point a lot to get this stat at the highest point to finish Best Girls Social Link, Mitsuru's Social Link. For some weird reason, this is the most difficult one, and Courage and I believe Charm were not as high with points. Basically, it has a point system in Persona 3, and every time you study, as an example, you get 1 point for academics. I know they do this because of the fact that you have the exams and then you basically get 3 academics points, but it's not enough at all. If you rely on that, you will have to go to other establishments. I was going to, I believe, Wakaku's noodles restaurant thing, I don't remember what it's called, to get the most healthy fish diet for me. So there was omega-3, I believe, so I get smarter. I had to grind that at some point just to have enough academics, and I wish this was a bit better balanced. But yeah, it's a small issue. It's not that big of a deal though. But yeah, in a nutshell, the gameplay is very fun despite my complaints for Tartarus. You have a lot of social links that you can do, and there is a lot more new detail for old veterans that have played the older Persona 3 versions, as well as a lot of new content for new Persona 3 players that have never experienced Persona 3 in general. Good stuff. The story though. It is the strongest aspect of Persona 3 Reload, with well-developed characters, as well as very strong themes about accepting death and how to continue your life after you've lost important people around you. And this is what Persona 3 Reload very well excels at. We really need to talk about the ending of this game. I'm not going to actually spoil the ending for you guys, of course, but man, this ending was hard to watch in a good way. There's so much emotion here and it's very bittersweet. I really love the ending. It's one of the best endings I have seen in a video game in a long time. Also, just the whole basically third act of the game is such in a dark mood, and they change up the music at the end of the game when you go back to your day-to-day life, and it's depressing as f***. They play with your emotions here, and I really love that. And they do this in the small details with the conversations between the characters, but also, like I said, just your day-to-day life when you go to school. You have this, in the beginning of the game, happy-go-lucky music, also in the second part, but then when it gets serious in the story, they change all that stuff up. Very well done, with its amazing soundtrack as well, and it intertwines very well here. Of course, you have the main party members from Cease that live with you in the dorm, and they are all very well developed characters, just like Persona 5 did. The game holds a lot of story for itself up until the very last part, and especially in the first, let's say, 1/3 of the game, not a lot really happens in the story, and I wish that was a bit better paced here, but overall it's not a big issue. The overall plot itself is really good and maybe even better than Persona 5 in that part. Still though, really good story here. There is one more negative though that I have to talk about. It's a small one, but it's still an important one. Some of its social links, two in particular, are introduced very late into the story. Like, I'm talking about the last 2 months late, before the final battle against the final boss. I don't know why the hell they did this, because you will have to grind these two in particular if you want to romance them. You will just have to grind them a lot in the last month, not doing any other social link, which is kind of meh. I wish they were a little bit earlier introduced, the social link itself, shall I say, not them as a character, but for some weird reason, because of the story, their social link starts very late, and I was not really a fan of that. That could have been introduced way earlier. But I think that this is a problem Persona 3 just has in general, that isn't exclusive towards Reload. This is just, I think, for every Persona 3. So overall though, the story is really good. It has great themes. The story might even be better than Persona 5 here. The characters are well developed. Most social links are also really good. Good stuff here. So to round everything up, Persona 3 Reload has a very good presentation when it comes especially to its music, soundtrack. It's awesome and the art style is really good. The presentation is on top. The gameplay is very fun and nice as well, despite my flaws I have with Tartarus itself. And the story is really nice as well. Dark, well developed characters and a good mystery plot as well. Persona 3 Reload is a great game, a great JRPG that you shouldn't miss out on if you are a Persona fan, or if you are just a fan of JRPGs in general. You shouldn't miss out on this experience. Maybe if you've already played the original Persona 3 and you don't want to spend, let's say, 60, 70 bucks, then I understand that you might want to skip out on this before it has a better price, let's say around 40 bucks, something like that. That is absolutely fine, but I do highly recommend at some point that you play this, because this is, in my opinion, definitely the best version of Persona 3 yet. And the final verdict for Persona 3 Reload is a 9 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching this video. Sorry if I took a long time with this one, but Persona 3 Reload was a long game. It's almost 100 hours, I believe, 80 hours that I played, almost 90 even. There was a lot of ground just to cover here, and it took some time to fully finish it. I like to finish my games before I make a review. I don't just do half of the game and then just stop, because the ending might be important for the story, something like that, that I have to mention in the review for you guys. The next review will probably be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I'm already busy for. I am I think already halfway on that game, so this review might be a little bit sooner, hopefully. Also, Dragon's Dogma 2 is releasing soon, as well as Rise of the Ronin. I might want to review those games as well. And then after that there's also Stellar Blade, which I want to review, so maybe give the video a like. That would also be amazing. And let's have a discussion. Do you like Persona 3 Reload as well? If you've already played it, let me know in the comment section down below. Leave a comment and maybe we can have a civil discussion, if it's civil. Who's your best girl? Let's talk about that. Thank you guys for watching as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Maybe gaming news related, because that's also something I do. Rumors, leaks, that type of content. I will let Todd Howard end the video, so don't go anywhere. Todd Howard, take it away. You can end the video. I'm done. Bye.
So, have you guys ever heard of a small indie game called Skyrim?